If your child does this with their eyes when you stop playing with them, it could be one of the early signs of autism that many parents miss between about 18 months and 2.5 years of age. And the reason so many people miss it, it looks so small. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't look alarming. It just looks like a quiet little moment in play, but sometimes those quiet little moments tell you the most. Picture this. You are sitting on the floor with your toddler. You have a ball or a little toy car. You roll it to them. They roll it back. You are both in the same rhythm, the same game, the same shared moment. Then suddenly, you stop. And now, something very important can happen. A typically developing toddler will often look at the toy for a second and then look up at your face as if to say, "Hey, why did you stop?" Do it again. I want more. They may not use words, but their eyes are doing something very meaningful. They are using you to communicate. They are not just focused on the object. They are pulling you back into the moment. But if your child gets upset, or keeps staring at the toy, or tries to continue alone, without ever looking up at you for help, connection, or shared attention, that is something worth noticing. Because the real question is not just, does my child make eye contact? The deeper question is, does my child use eye contact to connect with me? Do they bring me into what they are doing? Do they use me as part of the interaction? And that difference matters. Now, I want to say something very clearly. Before we go any further, seeing one of these signs does not mean your child is autistic. Seeing two signs does not automatically mean your child is autistic. This video is not for diagnosing. It is not here to scare you. It is here to help you observe more clearly, more calmly, and earlier. Because when it comes to development, an earlier understanding can make a real difference. So today, I'm going to walk you through 10 early signs that can sometimes show up between 18 months and 2.5 years of age, and I'm going to explain them using real-life examples that you can actually notice at home, not in a clinic, not in a textbook, but in the living room, at snack time, during play, in those little everyday moments where development quietly reveals itself. So let's start with the first sign. 1. Your child does not make eye contact to communicate. And this is where many people get confused. Because when people hear the phrase, eye contact, they often imagine a child looking straight into someone's eyes for a long time. But that is not really the point. The real question is this. When your child wants something, needs help, feels excited, or gets frustrated, do they use their eyes to bring you into that experience? For example, you are blowing bubbles, and then you stop. You are stacking blocks, and then you wait. You are opening a snack, and then you pause. Does your child look at the object, and then look at you? Do they go back and forth between the things they want and your face? Because that back and forth look is not random. It is social communication. It is your child saying, without words, I need you. I want you to notice this. I want us to keep doing this together. What can be concerning? It is not simply low eye contact in general. It is when a child consistently does not make eye contact, to ask, to share, to connect, or to pull another person into the moment. That is very different from just being shy, tired, or focused. 2. Your child does not share attention with you. This is what professionals call joint attention. And joint attention is one of the most important building blocks in early social development. It means your child notices something and then wants you to notice it too, not because they need help, not because they want the object, but because they want to share the experience. Think about everyday life. A dog walks past the window. A plane flies overhead. A toy lights up funnily. They find a bug outside. They hear a strange sound. A typically developing toddler will often point, and then look back at you, as if to say, did you see that? That moment matters so much, because it means your child is not only living in a world of objects, they are living in a shared world, a world where experiences become more meaningful, when another person joins them. If your child sees interesting things, but rarely tries to pull you into those moments, if they point without looking back, or do not point at all, that is something worth paying attention to. Because children do not only develop through what they see, they also develop through what they share. 3. Your child uses very few gestures to communicate. Before language becomes strong, toddlers talk with their bodies. They point, they reach, they raise their arms to be picked up, they wave, they clap, they shake their head no, they nod yes, they gesture, come here, help me. Look at that. These gestures are not small, they are the bridge between need and language. So ask yourself, when your child wants to be picked up, do they lift their arms? When they want something out of reach, do they point? When someone says goodbye, do they wave back? When you sing a song with actions, do they join in with the gestures? What can be concerning is when gestures are very limited, or when a child mainly uses your body as a tool, instead of communicating with their own body. For example, instead of pointing to the cup, they pull your hand to it. Instead of raising their arms, they cry until you guess what they want. Instead of waving, showing, or reaching with intention, they use very little nonverbal communication. That matters, because gestures are not extra. They are part of language. Sometimes they come before words, and sometimes they tell you that the social side of communication. It is not developing the way we would expect. 4. Your child does not follow your gestures, or your gaze is very well. Communication is never just one way. It is not only about whether your child sends signals. It is also about whether they can read yours. For example, you point to a bird and say, look. You turn your head toward a loud sound. You open your arms for a hug. You smile because something funny happened. A typically developing toddler will often follow where you point, not just stare at your finger, but actually look toward the thing you are trying to show them. That matters, because it tells you your child is using you as a guide to understand the world. You are not just nearby. You are meaningful information. So here is something simple to notice at home. If you point across the room and say, wow, look at that, does your child look where you are pointing? If you smile warmly at them, do they smile back? If you hold your arms out, do they move toward you? If those responses are very limited or very inconsistent, that is worth noting. Because development is not only about what a child notices, it is also about whether another person's attention can guide their own. 5. Your child does not respond consistently to their name. Now, this is one of the most talked about signs, but also one of the most misunderstood. Because toddlers get absorbed. They get deeply interested in things. They tune the world out sometimes. So the question is not, does my child respond instantly every single time? The real question is, when I call my child's name, in different everyday situations, do they usually acknowledge that I'm calling them? Calmly try this. Call their name while they are playing. Wait a few seconds. Call again. Maybe once more. A typical toddler may not always respond on the first try, but by the second or third, most children will pause, glance up, turn their head, or show in some way, yes, I heard you. What becomes more concerning is when this happens again and again, across different times of day, and your child often does not respond, even after several attempts. Now, one important note here, if you notice this, hearing should always be considered too. Because if a child is not hearing well, that can look very similar on the surface. But if hearing is fine, and response to name is still consistently weak, that is something worth discussing further. 6. Your child has fewer words than expected, or their language does not feel back and forth socially. Many parents focus only on word count, but language is not just how many words does a child know. It is also how they use those words. By around 18 months, many toddlers are using a few words on their own. By around 2, many are starting to combine 2 words, like more juice, mama up, big truck. They are also usually beginning to to understand simple one-step directions like, bring me your shoes, or get your cup. But here is the deeper piece. When your child talks to you, does it feel like communication? Do they babble or speak and then pause, as if waiting for your response? Do they respond? When you speak back, does their tone go up and down like they are really trying to tell you something? Sometimes a child can have words, but the words are not really being used to connect. They may label things, repeat lines, echo phrases, name letters or numbers, or say favorite words over and over, but there is little feeling of shared conversation. That is why language. It is never only about vocabulary, it is also about a relationship. 7. Your child does not bring things to you just to share joy. This one is subtle, very subtle. And because it is subtle, it gets missed all the time. A child may bring you something because they need help opening it, or fixing it, or turning it on. That is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about those moments when a child finds something exciting and simply wants to share the joy with you. They find a bug, a cool leaf, a funny toy, a little treasure from the floor. A typically developing toddler will often bring it over, hold it up, look at your face, and wait for your reaction, as if to say, look, did you see this? Isn't this amazing? That desire to share joy. It's a big deal because it is not about needing something, it is about wanting connection. If your child mostly enjoys things alone, or drops objects in your lap, and walks away without checking your face, or rarely brings things over, just to share excitement, that can be another important clue. Because there is a huge difference between, help me with this, and come into this moment with me. 8. Your child has very little pretend play. Between about 18 months and 2 years, play usually begins to change. It becomes less about simply exploring objects and more about using them symbolically. This is when a spoon can mean feeding, a doll can become a baby, a toy cup can become tea, a stuffed animal can go to sleep. This is when children often begin to feed dolls, rock teddy bears, make toy cars go vroom, pretend to cook, pretend to talk on the phone, or create little stories with toys. Now, not every child does this in the same way, but what we are looking for is whether pretend meaning is starting to appear. For example, when your child plays with dolls or stuffed animals, do they feed them, hug them, put them to bed, talk to them? When they play with cars, do they drive them somewhere, make sounds, act out little scenes? What can be more concerning? It is when play stays very literal and very repetitive, spinning wheels over and over, lining toys up in exact rows, moving objects in patterns, but with very little pretend meaning behind the play. Again, one repetitive play habit does not diagnose anything, but when pretend play is very limited, and social communication is also different, that combination matters more. 9. Your child rarely copies what you do. Imitation is one of the biggest ways toddlers learn. They not only learn from being directly taught, they learn by watching you and trying to join you. You brush your hair, they want the brush. You wipe the table, they want the cloth. You clap during a song, they clap too. You stir something in a bowl, they want to stir. This is why toddlers often feel like little shadows. And yes, that can be exhausting, but it is also how learning happens. So ask yourself, when I do simple actions, does my child try to copy me? Do they imitate gestures, like clapping, waving, blowing kisses? Do they imitate daily routines, like brushing teeth, pretending to sweep, pretending to cook, pretending to talk on the phone? If your child mostly watches, but rarely joins, rarely copies, and this shows up again and again, that is worth paying attention to. Because imitation is not just cute, it is a major pathway into communication, social connection, and everyday learning. 10. Your child shows repetitive behaviors or repetitive ways of playing. That happens a lot. Now this part needs care because many toddlers Do quirky things for a few days, and then stop. They may spin, walk on their toes for a while, flap when excited, repeat a movement, because it feels interesting. That can be completely normal. What matters is the pattern. How often does it happen? How long has it been happening? How dominant is it becoming? And is it happening? Alongside social communication differences. Examples might include frequent hand flapping, finger movements in front of the eyes, rocking, spinning, walking on toes most of the time, watching wheels spin for long periods, lining objects up again and again, or becoming very focused on repetitive sensory experiences. The better question is not, does my child ever do something repetitive? The better question is, has this become a major pattern? How does my child play, regulate, or spend time? Because repetitive behavior matters most when it is frequent, persistent, and part of a larger developmental picture. And there is one more thing I really do not want parents to miss: regression. If your child used to say words and then stopped, used to point more and then stopped, used to respond to their name more reliably, and now seems less responsive, used to waves, show, or socially connect more, and then something changed, that is worth bringing up sooner, rather than later, not because you should panic, but because of the loss of previously learned skills is something that deserves attention. Now, if some of this feels familiar, here is what I want you to do. First, do not panic. Second, do not sit alone with the worry for months, hoping it will go away on its own. Do something practical. Start observing clearly. Write down specific examples, not just something feels off, but things like, when we play ball and I stop, he does not look up at me. When I point to the dog outside, she looks at my hand, not the dog. When I call his name 3 times, he often does not respond. She enjoys toys but rarely brings them over to show me. He spins the wheels more, then he plays with the whole car. If you can, take short videos during ordinary daily moments. Playtime, snack time, book time, calling their name, sharing toys, short real-life clips can be incredibly helpful when you speak with a pediatrician or developmental professional. And if the response to the name seems weak, consider hearing as part of the picture too. Most importantly, if you are concerned, bring it up. You do not have to wait until everything becomes obvious. You do not have to wait for someone else to mention it first. Early support matters, and asking questions early is not overreacting. It is parenting with attention. So if you have made it this far, I want to say something directly to you. If this video brought up worry, please do not turn that worry into guilt. Noticing small signs does not make you a bad parent. It does not mean you failed your child. It may actually mean the opposite. It may mean you are paying close attention. You are present enough to notice the subtle things. You care enough to ask difficult questions. And that matters, because the goal here is not to label a child in fear. The goal is to understand a child more accurately, to see what they are showing you through play, through gestures, through eye contact, through language, through the way they connect, and the way they move through the world. So if there is one thing I want you to take from this video, it is this. Do not only ask, is my child autistic? Also ask, what is my child showing me through the way they communicate, play, look, and connect? Because sometimes, what changes a child's path? It is not one dramatic moment. Sometimes it is a parent who noticed something small, took it seriously, and chose to understand it early. If this video helped you see these early signs more clearly, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we do not parent through fear. We parent through understanding, careful observation, and the courage to ask better questions. And if you want, in the next video, we can go deeper into one of these topics, like how to tell the difference between a speech delay and signs that may be linked to autism, or 5 toddler behaviors that look scary, but they are actually completely normal. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and I will see you in the next video.